and we'll kick off with the first one, right? Apologies for absence, please.
I have one apology, Chair, from Provost Montague.
Oh yes, she's in Cyprus, isn't she? Any declaration of interest? No? Right. Application for planning permission to be considered by the committee. Right, we'll move to the first one.
Yep.
I can't read it. Okay. The first application is reference number 2018/0490 TP, and it's for a house at where?
Erection of a 50 metre high wind turbine.
Where?
Yep, 50 metre high wind turbine. 50 metre high wind turbine.
Huh?
A 50 metre high wind turbine.
A 15 metre high wind turbine. Sorry, I can hardly read it. It's writing's very small.
Shall I need to do it, Chair?
Yes, please. If it's you get bigger writing than me.
Yep, I've got it here for you. Thanks, Chair. The first application is reference number 2018/0490/TP. It is for the erection of a 50 metre high wind turbine to hub height with formation of access road and siting of control building, renewal of previous plan and permission, reference number 2014/0558/TP.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair. I'll do a brief presentation of this application. As you can see from the papers, the application is a detailed planning application for the erection of a 50 metre high wind turbine to hub height and 77 metres to tip blade, or to blade tip. The site lies in the Greenbelt, southwest of Neilston. This plan shows the location of the site, and this plan shows the elevation of the turbine. As set out on page 10, it should be noted that this application is for the renewal of a previous planning approval for an identical turbine at the site. The previous planning application was approved in 2015, and this renewal application was submitted in 2018. A total of 10 objections have been received, raising concerns over the provision of turbines, visual impact, noise impacts including cumulative noise impacts, tree loss and wildlife impact. No objections have been received from consultees. In terms of the assessment of the application, it's noted that the policy context, as set out on pages 11 to 13 of the papers, has changed since the original approval, principally through the recent introduction of MPF4 as part of the development plan and the adoption of LDP2. In summary, NPF4 is supportive of renewable energy developments, including wind turbines, through general policies which support tackling climate change, and also the more specific Policy 11 on energy developments, which sets out key mitigation considerations, but also specific support for the principle of wind energy developments. The proposal is considered to comply with MPF4 in principle. In terms of Local Development Plan 2, there is a general support for renewable energy development through Policy E2, and there is considered to be no conflict with the other relevant policies as set out on pages 12 and 13. Visually, the proposal was previously considered acceptable, and it is still considered that the local landscape can accommodate a turbine of this height without significant visual impacts, including cumulative impacts. This one image I thought might help. This image provided by the applicant shows the site in context with some of the other turbines. If you can see it, the one in question we're considering is this one in the middle, the orange one. This is looking from the northeast, roughly from the Neilston direction, and you can also see the Neilston community wind turbines to the right, which are higher than the proposed turbine. It is recognised that the proposal has resulted in concerns through representations over noise impact, and in particular it is noted that Environmental Health have no objections but have recommended updated noise control conditions to help protect local residents from disturbance and to deal with any potential issues that may arise. Further detail of representations and a response to the matters raised are detailed on pages 14 and 15. It is considered that the matters raised in this case do not merit refusal of the application. In conclusion, as set out on page 15, given that the proposal is for the renewal of a previous planning permission and the policy support for renewable energy developments, the recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you, Alan. Right, I'll open it up now for any questions.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a couple of quick questions. The conditions that are attached, are they the same or similar to the conditions that were attached to the one in 2015? And there was one condition on page 18, condition 10, at the reasonable request of the planning authority it starts, and that was, I think, in relation to noise, if there were any noise. So would it be the planners who would determine what was a reasonable request in that case?
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. The conditions are very similar. So the noise conditions have changed. They have been updated. Environmental Health have looked at it again, and they've suggested conditions which are more appropriate at this time, given that we have more information, and as time goes on, the assessment process for noise changes. So we're happy with the new conditions. We think they will protect local residents. The specific point you made about condition 10, yes, it would be a judgment based on the objections we receive or complaints we receive. So someone could complain a great distance away, say they heard something, would make a judgment about the proximity of the property and you know what the nature of the objection was or the complaint. So there would be some judgment by the planning officers. Thanks.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Is there any other questions, please? No. Then we move to the vote.
Happy to move to grant.
Can somebody propose?
Second. Yeah.
Annette has made for a motion for to grant. All in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Unanimous, Chair.
Eh?
That's unanimous, is it?
Right, 6, that's everything. That's a unanimous vote for that, so that's it through. Thank you. Move on to... Right.
Yep.
Reference number 20190788 TP. It's for an erection of 80 dwelling houses and 10 flats, and it's in the Kirkton Road, Neilston, by the developers, right? So, any questions? Andrew, you were up first.
Oh, right, okay, that's great, thank you. I appreciate that this is a development which was previously approved, but now we're looking at it in the context of National Planning Framework 4, and Policy 15 of that framework relates to local facilities and the promotion of 20-minute neighbourhoods. Since then, since the proposal was first approved under the previous framework last year, further information has come to light from the local GP surgery that they are at maximum capacity. And I just was looking for some opinion on the compatibility with this new planning framework of this development and the promotion of 20-minute neighbourhoods, ensuring that local amenities are available when we know as things stand just now, people who have moved into new houses in Neilston have to go to Barhead for a GP. So I'm just wondering what the planning officer's view on that position was. Thank you, Chair.
I can come in,
Right, thanks.
Councillor Cunningham, Chair. In terms of the what was in terms of the application when it was first assessed, matters of local accessibility, so access to services, to education provision, etc., to local amenities, that was all considered as part of that application. LDP2 is very much in line with the National Planning Framework 4 because it is an up-to-date local development plan. The issue in particular in relation to GP surgeries we have, as you know, discussed previously, and there is an issue in certain local areas which I believe colleagues in HSCP are aware of. It's not something specifically that we can deal with through the planning process, the provision of GPs. It's very much dependent on those general practitioners coming in, but certainly we're working closely with our colleagues in HSCP in terms of provision of facilities for occupation by the GPs, and in terms of the assessment that's been carried out of this planning application against NPF 4, it is still considered to be compliant in terms of it being a very sustainable location. It's an allocated site, so it's still, whilst there may be local constraints in certain areas, it still does comply and is in keeping with the aims of the policies within NPF 4.
Thank you, Chair. As my colleague says, I appreciate this has already been passed. It was just in the original report handling, there were a few gaps in information, and I'm just wondering, as time has progressed, if these have been filled in at all. I think there was information that wasn't available on EV charging and the play areas as well. The developer still had to submit these, and I'm just wondering if that's moved on at all. And also, are the planners still comfortable with the visibilities, please?
I can come in on the EV charging points. That's now a requirement for all new development, so that has been taken care of just as of the beginning of this month. So a requirement for provision at each dwelling. So that has been covered. I'll pass over to John.
Councillor, the conditions of the previous application that was in front of you last year, those conditions will be attached, so they still require the missing information that you're seeking. So we will be getting details on the play facilities and also the charging facilities, etc. So the developer will still have to submit that information in due course. But at the moment, the application, once we issue that decision, you'll get that condition and we'll get that information then.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Could I just pass comment on the GP provision, because I do know something about the GP contract. The number of houses and properties being built in this development would not entice GPs in, and I think it's got to be realistic. We've got to be realistic about that going forward. GPs are now looking to be in very large practices. Smaller practices are being largely abandoned because there's so much more money in it for them when they go into large practices. And I think in any development being considered, you're not going to get healthcare provision as ideally it would have been liked. But as somebody else said today, majority of people who go into these are coming from other areas, and they may remain with their old GP anyway.
Well, unfortunately, the doctors, as the part of the planning application committee, part of the planning project, so if we could just move on and get that sorted, but bear in mind for the officers and for the NHS, right, if it requires, then they've got to look at it for going to the right board. Okay, so can we have somebody to nominate whatever way you're going? Your board.
Pass.
You, Grant?
Yeah.
And a seconder? Thank you. You move to the vote, please. You sitting in your hands?
I would reject. I would reject based on the information that I now have. So I would vote to not approve this based on the information which has come to light regarding the GP provision.
But the GP has got nothing to do with the application.
But the promotion of local facilities in 20-minute neighbourhoods, we already know
that could be
that
addressed.
those local services cannot be provided because the building is at full capacity and there isn't an identifiable solution to provide a new, larger practice to accommodate more practitioners. So that is the basis of my objection.
Andrew, sorry, through the chair, there is no solution to that problem, Andrew. The solution is self-apparent. And to reject it on the grounds on these grounds when they're already is
right.
It's not a problem as I see it.
I've registered my
right,
declaration.
You're voting to reject it.
Sufficient, and that's taken on
Have you got a seconder?
Representations. I don't think there is.
No. No seconder, so it falls. Right. So can we move to the vote, please? In favour of Grant? Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. So that's it passed. You want to ask, right?
Yeah, given that you have made a motion with no seconder, would you like your dissent to be recorded in terms of the minute?
Yes, please.
Yes. My car's broke down and my glasses are in it along with a whole load of other things, right?
It's been a day.
It's what?
It's been a day.
Reference number 20220574 TP, right? It's an application for erection of a 1.5 storey dwelling with parking and amenity space at Eaglesham. That's the sure one, Jim. Okay, so any Alan?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the site is land east of 64 Brackenwood Crescent. Sure. The site is land east of 64 Brackenwood Crescent, Eaglesham, Waterfoot, can maybe more accurately describe it. As detailed from page 33 of the papers, this is a detailed planning application for the erection of a single house. As you can see from the location plan, the site lies at the end of a row of houses. Oops, I went. Go back the way. The site lies at the end of a row of houses on Brackenwood Crescent in Waterfoot near Eaglesham. The site currently has the appearance of a well-maintained area of open space with some ornamental planting and a hedge with some trees running through the site. The site is roughly triangular in shape. In land use terms, the site is not designated through the local plan as protected green space, and as such it is recognised that the principle of infill housing would not be contrary to the general urban policy that applies to the site. However, given the site characteristics, it's recognised that there are significant material considerations in this case. A total of 24 representations have been received as outlined on page 37. No objections have been received from consultees. The policy background and the detailed assessment are set out on pages 38 to 40. It's recognised that the house proposed is a relatively modest 1.5-storey property. As you can see from the site plan, it will be positioned towards the rear of the site with parking to the front, and these images are the elevations. In design terms, it is considered that the appearance of the house would be broadly compatible with the local area. Furthermore, it would not result in any significant overshadowing or privacy impacts. However, the key factors in this case are considered to be the shape and size of the plot and the resultant garden ground, and also the loss of an area of greenery with amenity and biodiversity value. In particular, it is noted that the site contributes to local amenity and, in light of the significant objections received, appears to be a valuable area for local residents to enjoy. Furthermore, it is noted that the development would result in a loss of biodiversity. The applicant has not provided any analysis of the ecological impact of the development. It is also noted that the proposal would have an unusual and slightly awkward garden space, with the distance to the rear boundary varying between 2.5 and 7.5 metres. As such, the proposal does not comply with established standards of garden size and is considered to be overdevelopment. In summary, while the principle of a residential development within an urban area is generally acceptable, in this case they are considered to be significant material considerations relevant to the shape and size of the site, as well as the appearance and biodiversity value as set out in the report, and as such the recommendation is for refusal for the reasons set out on page 41. Thank you.
See, I would agree with the conclusions in page 41 of the report of handling, that it would, the lack of ecological survey, biodiversity, protected species and habitats, I would agree with the conclusion on it, and I personally would vote to reject. It's not part of the LDP2, is it? It's not included in that, no. So on these bases I would agree with the conclusions of the officers. Thank you. I'll vote reject.
Second.
Thanks, Chair.
Page 43, it's the appeals decision for the appeals that I went to.
I can speak
sorry,
I can do that.
You got it right, okay, you do it.
Okay, thank you, Chair. This is a report for noting which alerts members to 6 planning appeal decisions issued by the Scottish Government's Planning and Environmental Appeals Division. 4 of the decisions have been dismissed, so I mean they uphold the original decision of the Planning Authority to refuse, and these are, I'll just run through very quickly which applications, which cases these refer to. The erection of a 20-metre high telecommunications mast and associated work off Boylston Road in Barrhead. That appeal was dismissed. The erection of 2 dwellings and associated works, including access between numbers 14 and 16 Newton Place, Newton Mearns. The restoration, alteration and conversion of Caldwell House to form assisted living flats with ancillary facilities. The restoration of the former Keeper's House to form a dwelling. Construction of a care home, new build assisted living flats and dwellings with associated demolition of some buildings. That was also dismissed. And finally, the erection of a 3-storey building comprising a shop unit and 2 flatted dwellings and associated works at land adjacent to 679A Clarkston Road in Netherley. So all of those have been refused. 2 other appeals have been allowed, and therefore the planning permission has been granted, and those relate to the restoration, alteration and conversion of Caldwell House. That was the listed building application which accompanied the other application, and the erection of a residential care and nursing home with associated car parking, formation of access, infrastructure and landscaping at Greenbank Church, Eaglesome Road in Clarkston. Thank you, Chair.
I'd really just like to ask a question, Chair, on that report that John Nichols kindly presented. It's at section 7 in relation to the application at Greenbank Church. Now, from what I recall, the Planning Applications Committee, which considered that, with the exception of one member, was pretty unanimous in its view to reject. Is this therefore the final decision and it's closed, or is there any further avenues that this could go?
There is no further appeal, so that the planning decision is the decision taken by the reporters unit is final. So yes.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was disappointed to see this come back the way it did, because it was pretty much unanimous, the committee. So I wanted to ask the planners that going forward, to ensure that there's no more spaces lost, because there's already too few car parking spaces for this, in certainly the planning committee's opinion, and we make sure that we do not lose any more car parking spaces, because I'm still really worried about all the shops across the road and the parking there. And also with the visibility displays, please make them as much as possible.
Paul?
Thank you, Chair. It wasn't unanimous. I abstained, and I was fairly new to the committee when it was considered, and if I had to reconsider it again, I would probably vote for the proposal. I think the argument was lodged. Oh, my apologies. Sorry about this. I didn't realise it was switched on. My apologies. I think we need to take cognizance of the fact that the appeal was upheld, and we need to look at how we look at these things, and particularly in relation to parking spaces, because obviously the appeal was upheld, and we need to look at that. I don't know if you maybe can tell us the cost of this to the council in this matter. I don't know if there was costs or how much they were. I personally think we need to learn the lessons of this and not, I'm sorry to say this, Annette, look at and say, well, bed in and say, well, we were right over the parking spaces. Clearly we were wrong on this one, and we lost the appeal. And in my view, we need to be more careful in future so we don't get ourselves in a position where the appeals there are being appeals against our decisions.
Firstly, there's no cost to the council. There were no costs awarded, so that, other than officer time, there was no financial implication. In terms of the report of handling, as members will recall, the recommendation, the officer recommendation was approval, and members, as absolutely is the planning committee's right, decided to refuse the application. What I would say in terms of the infrastructure and moving forward, we work very closely with our road service to ensure that visibility displays, that if there are parking issues which occur as a result of this, then they continue to monitor. We monitor our policies as well, so the appeal decisions are helpful to us as a planning authority to understand how robust our policy framework is. But it's we will obviously the reports we bring to you are based on our best understanding of a situation and a full assessment. But there are instances quite clearly with the planning the planning committee won't necessarily agree, which is absolutely correct and fine. But it's helpful to see the reporter's decision. But
just add an update on that. It wasn't just the parking issues that we were. It was the HSCP report as well, who were against it, and that was part of the. Well, that was a major decision, really, and certainly my part of thinking. I think most of the committee formed that same opinion. So it wasn't just about parking. There was other considerations brought into that than why it was rejected. Thank you.
I mean, I kind of disagree with the concept that because the reporter has overturned the decision, we made the wrong decision. I don't think that's the case at all, because we are here as local representatives to represent the views of the people we serve, and I believe that's what the Planning Applications Committee did on that day. There are quite a number of appeals on this report, I would say, and it strikes me that every single person that has an application declined is just appealing. Would that be a fair assessment in relation to the number of applications we have not approved? There seems to be quite a high number appealing to the reporter.
Firstly, I hope I didn't imply that it was the wrong decision that the committee made. It's because it's quite, that's the purpose of the planning committee, that absolutely, and it's the relationship as officers that we have with you that we're able to discuss these matters fully. In terms of the appeals, we can do a bit of analysis around that actually, because the next planning committee after recess I will be coming back on planning performance. Which does indicate within that what the level of appeal has been for the previous year, but we can have a look at this year. My gut feeling is that it's not particularly high. It just so happens that at the moment there was a flurry, and I think very positively 4 out of those 6 decisions were upholding the planning authority's original decision to refuse permission. So that's good. In terms of and also the local review body as well, the numbers going to that are relatively low compared to other authorities as well. I think it's just it's peaks and troughs. It comes and goes. But I can bring when we bring the performance report back in August, I can edge a little bit on that, which will maybe give you some more insight,
Right.
and also what the outcome was as well.
Right, Paul, you got another question?
Very quickly, I think I heard what my eminent colleague said. I do believe that we have expert professional people working with us and they make a recommendation. We have to be very circumspect before we overrule that recommendation. And that particular case was one that troubled me at the time. And I just feel that I should express that view. That's all I wish to say.
Thank you. This report seeks the authority of members to serve a Section 33A notice regarding unauthorised works at 29 East Kilbride Road, Busby. As set out in Section 2 on the papers, this is related to works within the garden curtilage of a house. The Planning Service has received complaints about the works and has considered whether the works are permitted development. It is considered that due to the position of the buildings and a fence forward of the principal elevation of the house, where that elevation fronts a road, planning permission is required. The applicant has been advised to apply for retrospective planning permission but has not done so to date. As such, the intention is to serve a Section 33A notice on the landowner which requires the submission of a retrospective planning application. As set out in paragraph 2.7, there are no penalty provisions for failing to comply with a Section 33A notice, but the planning authority is still able to serve an enforcement notice if deemed necessary. The recommendation is therefore that members agree to authorise the service of a Section 33A notice requiring the submission of a retrospective planning application. Thank you, Chair.
I'm saying I think they can remember during a site visit to this dwelling. So I'll open it up to the committee for any comments. You got me first, Jim, right?
Yeah, it's just a quick one. That I know kind of the newer members of the committee won't have been out to this site because we have visited it a number of times before, and after speaking with the planners, if there is any objections, it will come to us and we can make a decision on it then, which might need a site visit again, but we'll await the planner's decision on it, and when the level of objections, if there is any that come into it, we'll just take it from there. That's all.
Has there been a planning application? Well, just this for noting just now, I think, do it? What do you think?
Approval.
Eh?
It's for approval to issue the order. Councillor Arnold.
What?
It's to approve.
Oh, it's to approve it? Oh, sorry. Right, well, can you note it, we'll approve it.
I wanted to move that we approve the recommendation to authorise this section 33 notice for retrospective plan.
That's really good, I think. You approving it then, Right, okay. We'll move to vote. You're seconded, thank you. Move to vote. Is this a full house? Aye, full house. Right, thank you. Full house for approval. I never saw that bit at the back. I was too busy seeing. So that's okay. So we'll have an adjournment till